One of the hardest things to do in life is to accept that sometimes you have to start all over again. As we live life, we make plans that sometimes don't work out the way we would like them to. And we become dejected and we become angry with ourselves and we feel stuck and afraid that now we have to start all over again. We feel like, was all this hard work, this chunk of life that you put into all this, just a big waste of time? And I wanted to make this video to assure you that it wasn't. It never is. Don't let your mind gaslight you into believing that you have ever wasted time, that you have come too far and you can't turn back. Listen, life is like climbing a mountain. You select an approach and you make a plan, and then you start your climb. And as you climb, sometimes you may realize that this was the wrong path, that from here you can't approach ahead. And the only thing you can do now is to turn back, because there is no road ahead. So you have to turn back and you have to come all the way back to the bottom. And now you find a new path and you start a new climb. But does this mean that your old path was just a waste of time? Because I don't think so. That old path that you took initially taught you something that you couldn't learn by taking just the right path. It taught you what not to do. It taught you where not to go. Things that you wouldn't have learned if you hadn't taken the wrong path. And sometimes going back to zero is the only way that you can reach 100. That is a rule of nature. Quite simply, if you look at the trees, right? Every autumn, the trees lose everything about themselves. They lose their leaves, they lose their color, they lose everything that makes them look alive. But the trees don't panic. They don't feel like we've lost everything. They simply begin again. Because starting all over again is not the opposite of growth. Sometimes starting again is exactly what growth looks like. I think as we live life, we become too attached to who we imagined we would be, to where we imagined we would be. And we miss the life that is trying to find us. Listen, this new path is not a wrong path. It is a path which is showing you something that you couldn't have known about yourself if you had taken the other path. It is showing you that you are so much more than you thought. You are so much more than you could even imagine. And you wouldn't have known that. You would have missed all that beauty because you never took this path. And Listen, sometimes these new paths are not a burden the way we think they are. They are a gift. For me, sometimes the most interesting stories are not the ones where the character tries hard and then he makes it. For me, sometimes the most interesting stories are one where the hero tries hard and then he makes it, but then he loses all of it. And then he works hard to get all of it back again. Because that's what builds character. So, guys, don't be afraid to just start over again. To admit that something is wrong and that now you have to start over. I think people are afraid to start over because somewhere in their mind they think that they're starting from scratch. But you're not. You're not starting from scratch. You're starting with new experience. You're starting with wisdom. You start again while knowing things that you wouldn't have known before. And that is why I encourage you to keep going and to start again if you have to. Don't be afraid to start over. Be afraid to stay on the same path that is leading you to the wrong place.